You can call it a collapse.
And that time, it all collapsed.
But there is a much more common phrase.
Get this on film! Choke!
This is a list of teams that started way ahead of the pack.
Started off 6-0.
They still don't respect us at 4-0.
We're 7-2. How are we 8-2?
We are 9-2.
And missed the playoffs entirely.
You know what? You guys are joking.
We're counting down the most glorious single-season collapses in NFL history.
There's a lot of things that are involved in a collapse. Is it reality setting in?
Yes. No!
Is it luck that ran out?
Oh, God! Stokely! Wow!
Is it injury?
MVP candidate Fred Jackson knocked out of the lineup.
All of those things factor in.
Our list begins in Texas, where even collapses are bigger.
They were going to collapse, and I'm like, take your time.
The number 10 collapse of all time. The 2008 Cowboys.
It's my quarterback.
That's number 10 on the list. That should be number 1 on the list. Anything involving the Dallas Cowboys and collapse is like Christmas for the rest of the nation.
What's your favorite cartoon? Like Tom and Jerry.
DuckTales. You don't remember DuckTales?
Yeah, I do.
I think they started to believe that they were the most talented team.
We the best on 3. 1, 2, 3. We the best.
They were sitting there at 8-4 with 4 games to go.
Finish is still off now. You're going to have to go back and finish it off.
Everyone has a theory as to why such a talented team ended up on our list of greatest collapses.
Oh, no, they don't belong on that list. The punter got hurt. For my money, he was as good a punter as there was in the NFL.
Matt McBriar is hurt. Take that, Cowboys!
Hey, it's over now.
Things are just too easy for them. They go out at night. They stay out in these clubs and stuff. They have girls.
I blame Jessica Simpson for the Cowboys collapse, and I don't even know if they were together at that moment.
No, they could maybe have not been together, but remember when she came to the stadium and wore like the pink jersey? I'm like, you're ruining football. You're ruining everything.
They lost their final game at Texas Stadium.
Texas Stadium, facility famous for the hole in the roof, but tonight there is a hole in the heart of nearly every Cowboy fan.
Guys are just sprinting down the field, and all the Cowboys legends were there, and you could just see guys going, what did I just watch?
We are so disappointed that we couldn't have put the icing on this cake tonight.
I think what really solidifies this or puts this in the discussion of why it's a top 10 collapse is the loss at Philadelphia.
Somebody got to go home today, and it ain't going to be the Cowboys.
Everything was on the line. They got beat 44-6.
They just folded like an $8 suit in a range. I mean, it was terrible.
He's hit and fumbled.
It was awful.
The birds are burying the Cowboys.
They didn't even show up.
They didn't even get off the bus.
It's embarrassing.
Stop the fight. Somebody stop the fight.
You see those guys go through December and just fail. We were glad when we had to play those guys because we knew that this team will collapse.
The 2008 Cowboys went from 8-4 to 9-7 to become our number 10 collapse.
I'm a fan of Wade Phillips, but at times you have to take control of your team. It was really obvious there was a schism in that locker room. The Terrell Owens side and the Tony Romo side. How much things had changed in a single season. You have T.O. crying about Tony Romo. It's my quarterback. They're calling themselves Batman and Robin. Well, somewhere the Penguin and Joker got involved because clearly these guys were at odds.
Kiss my grits!
Coming up.
Yes!
Things
Which Brett Favre team made our list of greatest collapses?
Brett Favre. He should never came back. Should have sat down. Sit down.
From 2007 to 2011, the Giants won 2 Super Bowls, but when they weren't celebrating, they were collapsing. Like the 2008 Cowboys, the 2009 Giants also closed their stadium with a collapse. They started 5-0 and finished at 500. In their final 2 games, they were outscored 85-16.
The season ends with disappointment, and they had everything in their hands.
The following season, New York's playoff collapse was all but sealed when they blew a 21-point lead to Philadelphia with less than 8 minutes to play.
I don't look at those collapses as bad because you got a Super Bowl trophy a couple years before. If that was the Jets, where do I sign? Can I sign for that now?
The number 9 collapse of all time. The 2000 Jets.
Top 10 trivia time. Who coached the 2000 Jets?
No, let me take a shot. Was it Parcells?
Well, if I say Rich Kotite, would I be correct?
It's not Don Shula. I know that much.
Who coached that team?
I think it was Pete Carroll. Who was it then? Oh, boy.
I think it was the guy who played Coach on the sitcom Coach.
Craig T. Nelson?
Yeah. That's who it was, Craig T. Nelson. Which they never should have let him coach that team.
Guy was a fake coach.
He doesn't know anything, you know.
Who was it?
All right, I give up. Who was the coach?
Yeah, was that Al Groh?
What a mess.
Oh, Al Groh.
Al Groh. Jeez, that's right.
Al Groh had a job? Who hired Al Groh? Really?
I guess that was between Parcells and Herm Edwards. Kind of like a blip on the screen.
Well, that was the year that Parcells stepped down and they named Belichick the coach for an hour or so.
I've decided to resign as the head coach of the New York Jets.
And then he basically decided that he's going to New England.
Longtime Parcells assistant Al Groh got the job, and his Jets got off to a fast start.
99, Vinny tore his Achilles first game. That season didn't work out, so 2000, everybody's healthy. We started great. We started really good.
Trebet in the end zone, touchdown!
We got a team trying to prove everybody wrong or trying to prove Bill Belichick wrong.
With 1:55 to go in the game, the Jets have the lead!
We came out of the gate strong and won some games, especially close at the end. Monday Night Miracle was obviously one of those games.
Jumbo Elliott, an improbable comeback by the New York Jets.
I think that took a lot out of us. And then, wheels fell off. We just couldn't do anything right after that.
The 2000 Jets, they won 4 of those first 6 games by 4 points or fewer. Luck can always turn on you. Clutch performance is a cruel mistress.
Luck turned on the Jets after their 6-1 start. With 3 games left, they needed a win to get in. A loss in Oakland was followed by a home loss to Detroit.
It's no good. They never had a chance.
Then they go to play the Ravens in Baltimore.
After 2 losses, the Jets can still get in with a win.
I think we started off pretty good in that game.
We put in a special no-huddle offense to go against that monster defense and had success.
Oh, my, what a start for the Jets.
The Jets have the ball late in the first half. They're driving again. Vinny gets picked off by the goal line by Chris McAllister, who proceeds to go about 95 yards for a touchdown. And then the floodgates open. Jermaine Lewis returns a couple punts in this game for touchdowns in the second half.
Jermaine Lewis just ended the Jets season.
Another Jet collapse. 9-7, no playoffs.
That was some searing pain, even for Jets fans.
The pain was temporary for the author of our number 9 collapse.
Al Groh says, yeah, I'm out of here. I'm going to the University of Virginia to be the head coach.
He couldn't wait to get out of New York. That team just folded up. That was a terrible, terrible collapse.
What are you going to do? It happens. At least we're not number 1.
They kill themselves.
I think that should be way higher. The Jets, they've cornered the market on collapses.
The number 8 collapse of all time, the 2008 Jets.
In 2008, New York saw one of the greatest financial collapses in our nation's history. Thankfully, Brett Favre's Broadway breakdown provided a much-needed distraction.
You never got the sense that Favre wanted to be in New York. It never just seemed right. In that first press conference where he's got that I don't know what I'm doing here look on his face, but okay, let's try this.
What a disaster. What a disaster. What a disaster. Here's a year number 1 where Tom Brady's out of the picture.
Brady's down, and he's in pain.
It's opened up now for the Jets.
There's the big play strike, and the reason the Jets got Brett Favre.
You're a Jet fan, they're 8-3, you're pumped up.
Everybody's having a good time. Cheering for them. Yeah! Jets!
This team looked Super Bowl ready. They were clearly the class of the AFC.
Brett Favre with his 6th touchdown pass.
I felt at one time in that year we were pretty good. Because when we beat a good New England team up there.
The Jets survive and win in Foxborough in overtime. And the Jets are in first place in the AFC East.
They beat the Titans, who were 10-0 at the time. So they knocked them from the undefeated ranks.
10-1. 10-1.
After the Tennessee game, they fell off a cliff.
That's right, Scott. Brett Favre did Wile E. Coyote proud. The Jets built an 8-3 cliff and crash landed at 9-7 to become our number 8 collapse.
Didn't even make the playoffs, and the whole thing was a big, giant cluster for Al. That's what it was.
Brett Favre, being the gamer that he is, tried to play through injury, and he just wasn't physically capable.
His throws were kind of getting weaker and weaker, and the Jets' chances were fading, and then the ultimate insult was to have Chad Pennington beat them at the end of the season.
It's poetic justice. Pennington's the guy they kicked to the curb to bring in Favre. So that's about as bad as it gets.
This ball's going to go right here into this quarterback.
The thing that makes collapses memorable is what does it do to the team? Well, that one, Favre was a one-and-done player. Eric Mangini got fired.
Take on the title of a genius. You go out there and you be a damn genius. Make it happen. Win this damn game. You don't collapse. Brett Favre he should never came back, right? He should have sat down. Sit down.
The last thing the planet needed was Brett Favre in the playoffs. So I think God intervened. And he's got other things to do, but in this case he stepped in and said, we can't have this guy back in the playoffs in New York. We're never going to hear the end of it.
We always said that they're going to make it tough for the Raiders. So they try to make it tougher and tougher so that we wouldn't have a chance.
Coming up, what had Al Davis crying foul?
Teams that move seem to have some bad juju.
Well, 1995 started hot. The Browns were good early on. And then all of a sudden, the roof caved in.
After Art Modell announced the Browns would be moving, playoff aspirations died with the fans. Cleveland lost 7 of their last 8 games.
Sorry, house, baby, house of pain all day long.
The 1996 Oilers started 5-2 in their final season in Houston, but lost 6 of 9 to bid Texas farewell, including their last 5 home games.
It's so great to be back home in St. Louis.
The 94 Rams left Los Angeles on a 7-game losing streak. The following year, they collapsed in St. Louis, losing 8 of 10 after a 5-1 start.
Same old Rams, new city. Same old sorry-ass Rams.
That same year, the Raiders returned to Oakland and started 8-2. They lost their last 6 to miss the playoffs.
Raider pride, 1, 2, 3, Rams.
But it was another Raiders team that cracks our list at number 7.
The number 7 collapse of all time, the 1986 Raiders.
Today, the Coliseum's tenants are the Los Angeles Raiders, formerly that team from Oakland.
We came to Los Angeles in 1982. We were pretty darn good. And got in the playoffs each and every year that I was there.
They won the championship there. They were good. They were pretty good in LA.
Just win, baby.
The Raiders currently sport an uncharacteristic 0-2 mark and are all alone in the AFC West cellar.
We got off to a slow start in 1986.
I know going into that season, we were projected to be really good. We started out with 0-3.
Their 3 losses came to the Broncos, Redskins, and Giants, perhaps the 3 best teams in the NFL that year. No surprise, the Raiders cried foul.
Well, Mr. Davis always had that conspiracy theory going. Well, he always had his complaints about the way they stacked our schedule.
We always said that they're going to make it tough for the Raiders. So they try to make it tougher and tougher so that we wouldn't have a chance.
Sometimes it certainly felt that way.
Quite naturally, you're going to say it's a conspiracy.
We were struggling a little bit with Mark Wilson, and fortunately enough, Plunkett was on the team. We knew that, okay, we may have a shot, with Plunkett coming in.
I think people looked at Jim Plunkett as a savior once again.
Jim Plunkett had risen from the ashes in 1980 and 83. After leading the Raiders to 8 wins in 9 games, it looked like it would happen again.
His Phoenix rise was pretty incredible. You know, a guy that was pretty much written off and will never play again, and then he comes back and leads these guys to Super Bowls. So when he starts doing things like that, you go, okay, the precedent is there.
Got back into the race, got back into the hunt. We were feeling pretty good about ourselves.
We know what has to be done, and we know how to do it.
Getting to 8-4 after starting 0-3 is a great accomplishment.
Holy Toledo, what a play!
Finishing the season the way we did was what sealed the deal.
The Raiders started out, they were 0-3. I think the Broncos had left them for dead, but they've gradually battled their way back in. I think it shows they're a good team under adversity.
We were playing Philadelphia at home.
And off to Allen, he fumbles!
And we were going in for the win in overtime. And we fumbled the football.
The most astounding turn of fate!
But that pretty much broke our spirits. That was a tough loss to handle.
They just never got off the mat from that loss to the Philadelphia Eagles.
I tell my close friends, I felt like quitting after that game. It's just drained me. It just took it all out of me.
Despite losing 37-0 to Seattle the next week, our number 7 collapse still had a chance to salvage a playoff spot in a Week 15 game versus Kansas City.
First carry of the game, Marcus Allen fumbles.
It tells you right there that even if the star player is folding under pressure, then the entire team is going to collapse with it.
Allen fumbled on 2 of his first 3 touches, and the Raiders turned it over 7 times total in a crushing loss.
That was the game that you just put your head down in shame when you walked off the field like, what was that?
To drop 4 games in the NFL back to back to back after you have had a win streak going, yeah, that's major.
I can't imagine too many Raiders players want to make eye contact with Al Davis after that type of collapse.
The number 6 collapse of all time, the 1978 Redskins.
When the over-the-hill gang got a little too over the hill, former Redskins linebacker Jack Pardee took over for George Allen as head coach.
Defense, hold them, offense, field possession to begin with.
His first move was to name Joe Theismann the starting quarterback.
It was the opportunity I had been looking for. I returned punts my first 2 years. The last 2 I sat 76 and 77. And in 78, Jack Pardee gave me the opportunity to be the starting quarterback, and things started out really well for us.
The over-the-hill gang was picked to roll down the hill. Instead, they've reached the peak under flashy quarterback Joe Theismann.
They started off 6-0, and everybody said, here we go.
It was like, yeah, we're going to win the Super Bowl. We're not going to lose again.
I think they might have, at 6-0, thought they were better than they were.
A team that won 6 games in a row, the players were thinking they were pretty good. They were getting Super Bowl visions.
Jack Pardee was, I thought they were carving his bust in Canton.
Tonight, spectators, including President Carter, have to be impressed by Jack Pardee's team.
The peak of Pardee mania was a slim 9-5 victory over the defending Super Bowl champions.
And the Cowboys got pissed. The next time they met, it was no contest. Dallas crushed them.
I don't know how many Cowboys hit me. I mean, they blew me up. I'll never forget laying in Texas Stadium. And Randy White walks over and he looks at me and says, "You're right, stupid Macho Joe." I go, "Yeah, I'll be back." And he just looked at me and he went, "Good."
After losing an earlier matchup with Washington, revenge belonged to Dallas.
After Theismann threw 5 interceptions in back-to-back losses, the collapse was on. Jack Pardee's player-first mentality wore thin, and the 78 Skins finished 8-8.
Jack wanted players to discipline themselves, to play, to be like him.
Jack Pardee wore number 32 when he played. Well, he's playing well.
Jack was a player, and the players related to him as a player, not as a head coach. And a lot of the players took advantage of that.
Washington choked.
The 78 Skins were the first team to start 6-0 and miss the playoffs. But our number 6 collapse did have a silver lining.
That's when some of the new leaders started coming out on the Redskins. Being able to deal with success is probably the most difficult thing that people have a problem with.
They fell apart, and they had to regroup, and eventually they became a very dominant team.
For the first time since 1942, the Washington Redskins have an NFL
NFL championship.
Super Bowl champ.
Up next, what Hall of Fame quarterback ended his career with a collapse?
There were so many great memories, and for it to go out like that, it's kind of sad.
People love to see that happen, where they totally collapse and say, ha, 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 what happened to you guys?
Recapping our list of top 10 collapses.
Number 10, the 08 Cowboys finished with a whimper.
It might have been the single most humiliating day in Dallas Cowboys history.
Number 9, the 2000 Jets did not grow under Al.
We just didn't sync with them. That's probably what hurt us in the long run.
Number 8, the 2008 Jets, a Farberless collapse.
There's no question Favre was injured. That was a big reason for the collapse.
Number 7, the 86 Raiders didn't just win, baby.
We couldn't do anything but shake our heads. Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Number 6, the 78 Redskins, the first 6-0 team to miss the playoffs.
Washington choked.
The number 5 collapse of all time, the 1987 Chargers.
I didn't even know we would be the top 5. There had to be some other that were more dramatic than that.
Sorry, Al. Going from 8-1 to missing the playoffs gets you a spot in the top 5. But we're not blaming you.
When Al Saunders came into the NFL as head coach in 1987, this was the strike year. So this was not a great year for a guy to come in and say, I'm in charge.
We started off that season, we lost the first game, and then we won the second game, and then the strike took place. It was an interesting time.
They won 3 replacement games, and they didn't just win those replacement games, but they won them by scores like 10-9 and 17-13.
Who are these guys?
The scab players playing scab games, and any records that they set, I'm sure they're proud of them. We didn't pay a whole lot of attention to what was going on.
When you buy NFL football, you buy prime rib. You don't expect to be served hot dogs.
We played some good football. We were the only team to win all 3 games and had the Chargers poised to make a run.
When we ended up at a 4-1 point after the strike, we felt really good.
We practiced as a team. We had game plans for each week as to which opponent we were going to play once the strike was over.
And I think we were probably a little bit more ready to play than most of the teams we played.
The Chargers returned from the strike to win 4 straight.
At 8-1, yeah, you feel pretty good.
I think it was a mirage, a little bit of a mirage.
This is a team that was getting lucky in some of the most unusual circumstances in NFL history. I think that padded their numbers a little bit. This was probably the most overrated 8-1 team in history.
1987, Jack Murphy Stadium, San Diego, is hosting the Super Bowl. So we should have saw the collapse coming just from that. It's a total jinx. You never make the Super Bowl when you're actually hosting it.
Super Bowl dreams were dashed by 6 straight losses to end the year. It also marked the end of a career for both Dan Fouts and Kellen Winslow.
In a lot of ways, it sums up their careers. What a way to have it end. Especially for 2 players that were that productive, that brought as much as they did to the game. You hate to see it end that way for them.
Run out of the break. Oh, run out the break. Tippy tone like a
They should have been in the postseason, getting off to that great start. Very sad to see a team just totally coming unglued at the seams.
If your scab team goes 3-0, at least the veterans can pick up where they left off. Maybe they should have put the vets on the side, let the replacement guys come back and finish the season.
The number 4 collapse of all time, the 2003 Vikings.
Oh, we're number 4?
Yeah.
The 03 team?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Was another class going to be our dome?
The 2003 Vikings had the number 1 offense in the NFL.
We had Randy Moss. I mean, we had Culpepper. We had an unbelievable offense.
Another big play for the Vikings offense.
Minnesota averaged 30 points a game on their way to a 6-0 start.
When the Vikings were 6-0, that was not a team playing above their heads. They were one of the top teams in the league.
But now he look at it! Oh, Williams! Touchdown! You gotta be kidding
our expectation was to make it to the Super Bowl. The teams that really win, they have a closeness, they have a bond that's inseparable. And we had it in the beginning. And somewhere along the line, we got cocky and we lost it.
We don't finish this thing out until we finish this thing out.
We stopped spending time together. We stopped doing those little things. And from that, it was just a downward spiral.
Whatever it takes, take this son of a...
I think with all of these collapses, you have to look at the head coaches.
Raise your hand if you're going to get better this week.
Head coaches' jobs at this point sometimes have less to do with scheme and more to do with motivation.
A lot of time, Coach Sides getting the blame for it.
We ain't moving the ball because you five are getting your asses kicked. Follow up and block some money.
The practices were like hard, long, and it wore you out during the course of the year. Practice was hard in the game. You start seeing guys wearing down, getting beat down. Guys started getting hurt. And then one thing led to another. From that point, it's just downhill.
A 6'1" rookie robbed Randy Moss like a thief in the night.
What do y'all want? We're trying to get to the playoffs. That's all I can tell you. Hit him right in the head, shake and bake. Let's go. Watch out, cameraman.
Our number 4 collapse still could save the season in the final week. If Minnesota could beat the 3-12 Cardinals, they would win the NFC North.
They're up 17-6 in the fourth quarter, and they choke the game away. 17-6. I mean, the game's over.
Now he dumps it in the end zone. Touchdown, Cardinals! It bounces in the air, and the Cardinals have it at the 42.
Everybody in that stadium sort of had that feeling that something special was going to happen until 4th and 25, and that's when everybody's thinking, oh, this game's over.
4th and 25, you definitely think the game is over, but you never know until the game is over.
Viking fans will never forget the name Nate Poole.
I believe it was caught by Nate Poole.
I mean, Nate Poole? Who is Nate Poole?
Yeah, I remember him.
Take your ass home. Don't come back here.
Together, opportunity to win this game and possibly into the playoffs. And we come to lose to the Arizona Cardinals.
Minnesota goes home.
It was such an aggravating game because they were just so terrible.
On the final play of the regular season for the Vikings, they lose 18-17.
That catch got Green Bay into the postseason, and Nate Poole got a key to the city.
The Packers invited Nate Poole to their first playoff game. He's about the only guy they don't have a street sign named after yet, but that might be coming.
6-0, and then losing to 4 teams that were 4-12. That just was an unforgettable collapse.
You know what? I don't really want to talk about that. I'll talk about something else, but I don't want to talk about that.
All right.
What, I don't want to rehash we lost? I want to go back to that?
Well, let me ask you this.
So come up with something better, or else I'm walking out.
Up next, which team collapsed the season after losing their star quarterback?
Definitely those first 6 weeks of the season.
Just because a team made the playoffs doesn't mean they can't get some love on our list of all-time collapses. 3 teams who won 15-1 folded in the playoffs. The 98 Vikings and the 2004 Steelers got to their conference championship games and collapsed.
Gary Anderson has missed a field goal for the first time in 2 years.
But the 2011 Packers couldn't even make it that far. They went one and done against the Giants.
What a run for this Packers franchise coming to an end here tonight.
Even though the Bills lost 4 straight Super Bowls, the ultimate playoff collapse came in the 2007 season when Bill Belichick's Patriots failed to complete the first 19-0 season in NFL history.
We took it from their ass, 18-1.
Even though that's not a multi-game collapse, it's the greatest collapse ever. I mean, they were 1 game away from a perfect season, and they lose the biggest game.
But we're counting down the front-runners that folded and missed the postseason entirely.
The number 3 collapse of all time, the 2009 Broncos.
Let's go! We too close! The guys who have come out of the Bill Belichick coaching tree have been terrible.
Earlier in the countdown, former Belichick assistant Eric Mangini and the 08 Jets won a spot on our list of greatest collapses. Congrats, guys. The following season, the Broncos hired another hoodie disciple, Josh McDaniels, and got their very own collapse.
I love the 09 Broncos being on that list because Josh McDaniels knew everything about everything.
Get your ass blocked!
Josh came in, he had just coached 2 years before that, Tom Brady to be the #1 offense in NFL history.
Tom Brady, touchdown pass number 50, an NFL record.
Tom Brady gets injured, he turns Matt Castle into a $60 million quarterback.
In Denver, McDaniels transformed Kyle Orton into a 3,000-yard passer. It took a little work.
You want me to just leave it?
No, I want to slant the thing.
Yeah, you can slide it.
I want to sight it. Yes. No!
The first one was the crazy play at the end to beat the Bengals.
Going to be tipped and caught. Wow! Are you kidding me? Oh, my goodness!
That's your first win. So you get the football gods give you one.
Broncos are going to be 4-0.
Seeing them get off to that start, you kind of thought, man.
These Broncos are for real. Josh McDaniels changed the whole culture here.
We thought we're witnessing the birth of a legend here.
He looked like the real deal. They beat the Patriots in Denver in overtime to go 5-0.
When he ran around after he beat the Patriots like they just won the Super Bowl, I think everybody went, whoa, guy. Like, that's a little bit much. Like, I kept waiting for him to Hulk Hogan his shirt and just rip it off.
Josh McDaniels is showing his emotion right now.
McDaniels was so intent on beating Belichick and showing Belichick.
I don't want anything else the rest of the year.
They think everything's sweet. I'm dominant football, and here we is.
The fastest sinking ship I ever saw was the 2009 Broncos.
Everything that worked early in the season, Kyle Orton's played. Everything on defense falling together.
They tackled him good.
The enthusiasm and confidence that Josh McDaniels brought to town. It just evaporated.
The Jamarcus Russell loss at home, he essentially knocked them out of the playoffs.
Russell throws middle, caught, touchdown!
To lose to Jamarcus Russell, or at least you go down in history, because I don't think anyone else has ever done that.
They can't do that.
They think we're going to downward spiral, and we don't know how to get up.
At least Mangini's Jets finished with a winning record. After starting 6-0, the 2009 Broncos finished 8-8 to become our #3 collapse.
Josh McDaniels said they owned us before the game. Own who?
It's not a coincidence you have Mangini on here, you have McDaniels on here. Excellent coaches, but they're still trying to find themselves because they're young.
I don't know what we're doing here.
It had certain earmarks of what happened to Belichick in Cleveland. Belichick was a young guy, got his first head coaching job probably a little bit too early, and the same thing happened with McDaniels.
I really don't think you guys really buy into what I'm telling you.
Late season stumbles were nothing new in Denver.
The year before, they actually did the impossible. They made a division champion out of the 4-8 San Diego Chargers, who won their last 4 games.
San Diego has bolted from the quicksand and stolen this division.
And that cost Shanahan his job.
He had just been fired. And one thing that Mike Shanahan said is, I don't know who the next guy is going to be, but you'd be crazy to change this offense. The first thing that Josh McDaniels does is he gets rid of Jay Cutler.
He had all the power in the building. He got rid of an entire offense. And then he drafted Tim Tebow. Won't hold that against him, will he?
Tebow!
A lot of people forget that this is the guy who picked Tebow in the first round.
Touchdown, Denver is over!
With the excitement that Tebow brought, you got to thank him for something.
Coming up, Josh McDaniels is far from the only head coach to come under fire. The architect of our #2 collapse struck a nerve like no other.
Call it plays in there. Heads, call.
Heads up. Collapses come when you least expect it. The '98 Steelers were 7-4 when they fell victim to a controversial coin flip. They lost that game and their next 4 to finish 7-9.
The Steelers and their fans are stunned.
Marty Schottenheimer's 2002 Chargers started 6-1, but lost 7 of their last 9 to miss the playoffs.
No, I wasn't thinking it was going to be a day like this.
And Pete Carroll had the 1999 Patriots riding high with a 6-2 start, but they lost 6 of 8 to end the year, ushering in the Bill Belichick era.
When you see these staggering collapses, can't turn away. Why was America's Funniest Home Videos one of the highest rated shows? Because people like to see people fall down and get hit in the nuts.
The number 2 collapse of all time. The 1994 Eagles.
People forget just how good that team was. The 94 Eagles destroyed the Super Bowl champions.
And the Eagles are humiliating the 49ers.
40-8. How does a team like that collapse in the second half of the season? There has to be something with the coaching. Talent doesn't explain it.
The coach was Richie Kotite.
All right, babe, let's do it, huh?
After his team's hot start, he was looking for a little respect.
Jeffrey Lurie, his first year owning the team, and he has a head coach who starts 7-2 and knows that he started 7-2 and is pining for new money, new contract.
Now remember the nitwits in Philadelphia. You got to re-sign him, give him a new contract.
I didn't like Kotite a little bit, but I said at 7-2, God is at work here. Please give him the extension.
And Lurie basically said, we're not going to talk any contracts for any coaches at that time. At that point, the coaches all knew that they were getting fired.
And then all of a sudden, instead of being Vince Lombardi, Rich Kotite turns back into Rich Kotite. They had a bad game against the Browns, and then it just starts rolling and rolling.
Randall was flirting with danger, and that time it all collapsed.
With Philadelphia facing elimination, Kotite decided the time was right for a quarterback change. He benched Randall Cunningham for Bubby Brister, who threw a pick with the Eagles up by 7 late in the fourth quarter. The Giants then scored 10 points in the final 4 minutes.
A season in which the Eagles were 7-2 is now in ashes.
2 words, Rich Kotite. That's why they collapsed. He was clearing away the coach that should be penciled in with the number 1 collapse.
It's got to be Kotite. I mean, how can it not be Kotite?
That obviously didn't work out well. But I thought Rich got a bad rap. You know, we lost a lot of good players. You lose Reggie White to free agency. I mean, that's the heart and soul of the team.
Let's go, D! Come on, Reggie!
Richie's a good guy, but he just couldn't get through to his players.
Let's bring it back and be smart now. Let's go!
Hey, listen, you don't have a thin skin and get to this business. You can't.
Kotite must have had pictures to get a head coaching job after that with the Jets. Had to have pictures.
Hey! This is serious business!
He was terrible. He shouldn't have been coaching. He should have been running a men's store in Jersey.
Hey, come on, babe.
What is Rich Kotite doing these days, anyway? Is he, like, working at a car wash?
Come on now. Suck it up now.
Like, if I pulled into a gas station right now and I saw Rich Kotite and he asked me for $1, I would not be surprised.
Where's your boy, Steve? Save him. He's probably up in his hands. Somebody's got some nerve.
What should be number 1? The all-time greatest collapse in history.
The answer to that question. Sometimes the biggest collapses happen in a single game.
Wright puts it down, and the Bills have won it! The Giants have squandered a 38-14 lead.
But we're counting down the teams who folded and missed the playoffs. Before we see who took the top spot, let's recap the list so far.
Number 10, the 2008 Cowboys did it to themselves.
We didn't let anybody outside of this group bring us down.
Number 9, the 2000 Jets cooled off quickly.
When you start out that hot, you're thinking home field advantage.
Number 8, the 2008 Jets had help from above.
The last thing the planet needed was Brett Favre in the playoffs. So I think God intervened.
Number 7, the 86 Raiders stayed the course.
I felt like quitting. It just took it all out of me.
Number 6, the 78 Redskins were no longer over the hill.
That Redskin era was over, and I think they just didn't quite know it yet.
Number 5, break out a Kleenex for the 87 Chargers.
Very sad to see a team just falling flat on their face.
Number 4, the 2003 Vikings are drowned by Nate Poole.
Such an aggravating game because they were just so terrible.
Number 3, the 2009 Broncos were done in by Jamarcus Russell.
At least you go down in history, because I don't think anyone else has ever done that.
Number 2, the 94 Eagles were led by a master strategist.
Kotite must have had pictures to get a head coaching job. Had to have pictures.
And now, the number 1 collapse of all time, the 1993 Dolphins.
What a year that was for Miami. I mean, a lot happened for the 93 Dolphins.
Let me see, what can I say?
Wasn't that the year that Dan Marino got hurt, though?
There could be something critically wrong with Dan Marino.
Marino got injured. Their season was over then.
He is in pain. And you rate that the number one collapse? Why would you rate that number one? When you had an old-time quarterback go down, I mean, it's not like, the team was together and they just folded.
This is the only team that has ever started 9-2 and did not reach the playoffs.
When you lose it after 9-2, you've accomplished something. They deserve to be the number one team on this list.
It is impossible to imagine Miami without Dan Marino.
Well, it won't work without him. I mean, he's the best in football.
Now the backup has to step up. Scott Mitchell. Heck, he was on the team. I didn't even know his name.
Direct snap to Mitchell. Steps in, throws deep over the middle.
Even without Marino, Miami kept winning.
Well, if there's any coach that you think is going to be able to keep things under wraps, keep things under control, and steer the course, it's Don Shula.
In Week 11, Shula reached a career pinnacle.
Coach Shula being mobbed as he becomes the all-time winningest coach in the history of the National Football League, breaking the record of the immortal George Halas.
Maybe once he got the record against the Eagles that day, maybe there was a natural letdown. Maybe Shula let down.
At the end of the year, I want this record to be in a year that the team won the Super Bowl.
Maybe getting past Halas was a mountaintop experience for him. He didn't look like he had any answers when the Dolphins started to unravel.
The last game they won, it's a classic game. Last game the Dolphins win that year, Thanksgiving Day in Dallas. We like to call it the Leon Lett game.
Oh, Leon Lett! Leon Lett! Oh, my goodness gracious.
I can just remember celebrating that victory, thinking we are 9-2. We have 5 games now to roll into the playoffs.
It just seemed like the karma was finally switching their way.
It's becoming right there.
We cannot even try to lose these games. We're still winning.
After Thanksgiving, it was like all their good karma had been used up, and they just spiraled out of control.
After the Lett game, Miami lost 4 straight. Yet they still entered the final week with a chance to make the playoffs.
And welcome to Foxborough Stadium, where the Dolphins have come for a most important game against the New England Patriots. A Miami win or a Dolphin tie today gets Miami into the playoffs.
We were going into the end zone to win the game.
Dolphins have 1 timeout left. Mitchell looks. Starts to run it. He calls it. It's caught. They rules out of bounds.
If they had instant replay, we'd have won the game. But they didn't have it because we caught the ball in the end zone. Mark Ingram caught it. He was in. It was a touchdown.
And I had this deep, solemn feeling that this was the end of the season for this team.
Bledsoe, long ball, man is open, tips in, touchdown, it's over.
I don't think you could get lower at a point in time, certainly from my career standpoint.
You can expect a guy like Mike Tice, Al Grove, but Don Shula's team, you spot him a 9-2 record, and he doesn't make the playoffs.
You wonder what he'll remember the season for. My guess is he'll remember it as the year that they collapsed. He's not going to remember it as the year he set the record.